Sorry I'm short. Y'all can see me in the back. So Chris said to make the next thing awesome today, and you are here at my presentation, so I will do my best to make this awesome. And I'm a newbie, so thank you for coming to see my presentation. I really appreciate that anybody came at all. So thank you. My name is Celeste. I did graduate from Kent State with a computer science degree in December of last year, so I am very much a newbie. But I have been in the computer science field since 2013. So I worked at Kent State all throughout college doing log analysis. I even had an internship at the FBI doing cybersecurity, but don't ask me about it because I can't tell you. And then I now work for a company called OE Connection full-time doing log analysis and incident response. Oh, and I love puzzles and cats, but that's a different presentation. And then I know a lot of you have a lot more cybersecurity experience than I do, so I'm always open to feedback and comments, whether it's about my presentation or just my speaking skills in general. I also have a brand new website called I Don't Speak Geek, where I will be publishing all of these slides, so you don't have to worry about taking notes or pictures of the slides or anything. And then, of course, you can email me, too, with any of your feedback, comments, as well as mention it to me here. So, the way I see it, logs are all part of a puzzle. All the different types of logs we can connect, whether it's DNS logs, firewall logs, web application logs, you name it, are your puzzle pieces that come together to get a big picture of what's going on in your systems. Ta-da! Log. So, you have no idea how hard that was to put together, so take a minute to appreciate that slide. So what I want to cover with you guys today, I'm really briefly going to talk about some of the tools that you can use to analyze your logs, but I'm not going to talk about that too much because it's not the main point, and there's a lot of other presentations that go way more in depth than this when I do. And then I'm going to go over some real quick and easy searches that you can set up in your log aggregator to start getting a big picture of what's going on in your system. And then I'm going to talk about how you can extend this presentation more than just the couple searches that I talked through. And then, of course, if you guys have any questions, I'm open to answering those as well. So, the tools in your log aggregators. There's a lot of different types of log aggregators out there that will accomplish what you're looking for. There's a full list complete with cost and feature comparisons at stackify.com, which is this link that y'all can't see. But for the purpose of this presentation, all the examples are going to be from Splunk, just because that's what I'm most familiar with. But a lot of these should accomplish what you're looking to do. Just a high-level view of how these work. So, of course, you need to get logs into your aggregator. You really can't do analysis without it. Of course, you can always import your logs into the aggregator, but a lot of them also have agents you can install on the computer or server you want to get logs from, and then just forward those back to your log aggregator. Once they get there, you'll have to parse your logs. Depending on what system you use, I think Logstash calls it the filter, Splunk calls it the indexer. Regardless, it's going to go through your logs and make them searchable, usually by turning them into key value pairs. And then once you've done that, you're ready to start searching. You've got all your puzzle pieces in your box. It's time to start putting the puzzle together. So when I first started with log analysis, of course I started right out of college, so I don't have the systems administration background or the networking background that a lot of other people in InfoSec have. So I got to learn all about the systems at the same time I was learning how to do log analysis. And I was really overwhelmed by the sheer amount of logs that are generated, like overwhelmingly amount of logs. And then there's no good resources online that say, here are 10 things everybody should be monitoring for. They're like, oh, look at DNS logs. And I go, okay, cool. Looking at DNS logs. What am I looking for? So I put together this search now that I've been doing it for a few years. That way you guys can get started doing log analysis and start seeing that big picture. So the first thing I want to go over is password changes after hours. Of course, this varies by company, but in general, employees don't really log in before 7 a.m. or after 6 p.m. They're even less likely to be changing their password during those times. So you can monitor for that kind of activity to see if there's anything unusual going on. Of course, you can do this with a lot of different log types. You can do it with Windows logs, web application logs, etc. For this particular example, I chose to look at Windows logs. Can everybody hear me? Okay, I feel like I'm going in and out. Okay, cool. So for Windows logs, there's event codes, which specify sort of what's going on. Event code 4723 means that a user tried to change their own password, and 4724 means that somebody tried to change somebody else's password. So there's also the security ID field, which identifies the users involved. The first one is the user who was affected by the change, and then the second is the user who made the change. I have that backwards. First is the user who made the change, second is the user affected. And then, of course, we're mostly interested in the hour in which this occurred, so I created a new field that extracts the hour value out of the timestamp so we can look at just that value. And then I specify we're only interested if it's less than 7 or greater than 18, which is 6 p.m. And then, of course, because logs are really painful to look at, we're going to take out all the important information and put it in a table. So I just pulled out the timestamp, the users involved, and whether or not they were successful. Of course, you can add more information like where the change occurred, IP address, all that sorts of stuff. So here you can see that I changed my password at 7 p.m. If it's small, that's what happened. So of course, password changes can occur for all sorts of different reasons. What's more interesting is what happens around this password change. So if you see that I changed my password, and then all of a sudden I'm sending out 50,000 emails, or I updated my direct deposit information, that's a little bit more concerning. So, changes to AD groups are particularly important, specifically ones that give highly privileged access. So think domain admin, network admin, workstation admin. Those are important groups that you really want to pay attention to who's being added or removed from those groups. So once again, I chose to look at Windows event logs. Event code 4728 is a user who is added to an AD group, and 4729 is a user who was removed from an AD group. And then, of course, monitoring every AD group change would be a bit intense, especially because a lot of AD group changes happen as part of normal business operations. So I chose to specify a few AD accounts or AD groups that I was interested in monitoring access to. So once again, you have your security ID field with the user who made the change and the user who was affected by the change. This time there's a third value that specifies what AD group was involved. And then I added a few extra fields just to make it a little bit more human readable to quickly determine whether a user is being added or removed from the group. And then once again, we throw it all into a table. So here you can see that I added my boyfriend Zach to domain admin group, but Zach does not work at the same company as I do, so that's probably a little bit of a problem. So, multiple account lockouts. So sometimes an account can be locked out, continuously over and over again, simply because there's a bad password sync, something along those lines. It can also be an early indicator of a brute force attack, so it's worth paying attention to. So once again, we're looking at Windows logs, and I'm taking the account lockout log, which is 4740, and I'm grouping them by user. So all of the logs that have the same user are all now grouped together. And then I'm specifically interested where there's more than one lockout. Because of course users can mis-enter their password a couple times, get locked out. That's normal. But once you start seeing more than one lockout account, that becomes a lot more interesting. And then once again, we can throw it all into a table. I also created a new field specifically for the timestamp. Splunk isn't real happy when you group events together. The timestamp stops working properly. So I created a special field for that just so we can see the lockout times. And then in the table, you can see I got locked out of Exchange multiple times, all within about 20 minutes. What happened was I changed my password, and then the Mail app on my phone didn't realize that and kept trying to log into the same, old password. So is this a security issue? Probably not, but it does help us help operations. So a lot of people see us as the no people. We just think, oh, can we do this? No. Can we do this? No. So the more that we can help operations and other teams, the less scary we seem to the rest of the company. And then they're more likely to help us when we actually need them to do something. So these kind of searches will help them as well. Generic accounts are something I feel like a lot of companies overlook. So for example, at your company, you might have info@company.com, which is just a generic account that's used that people can send emails to. So the problem with this, though, is I should have access to that mailbox, like to read email, reply as email, but I should never really have username password access to this generic account. So if you see people attempting to log into that generic account, that might start raising some red flags. So we can look at Windows logs, specifically the failed login attempt or lockout accounts. And then you can specify your generic accounts that you're interested in. Of course, a lot of companies have a lot of generic accounts. So the other thing you can do is export a list of generic accounts from AD into a CSV file. Then upload that CSV file to your log aggregator and search against the file instead of having to manually enter all of your generic accounts into the search query. Then once again, we'll check out our table. So you can see that there were a lot of login attempts to our marketing account. Turns out there was a system that had open ports that should not have been, which allowed anybody in the world to try to authenticate to the system. So people were trying just random usernames and passwords. So thankfully we were able to see this before they were able to correctly guess the password and close those ports before anything happened. So attempted logins to accounts that don't exist or are disabled. So once again, we can look at failed login attempts in Windows, but we can specifically look at why the login failed. So there's a thing called substatus code. The first one here, which I know is painful to read, means that the account login failed because the account doesn't exist. There's no account to log into. The second one being that the login failed because this account's disabled. Nobody's allowed to log into it. There's a full list of these online for reference if you're interested in more failed login reasons. Because like I said, they're not real easy to read. And then we can group those failed logins by IP address so we can get an idea of, who's trying to do this. And then just for human readability, I renamed the field to quickly see this is the number of failed attempts. And then we can throw it all on a table. And I made sure that the ones with the most attempts were sorted at the top so we can quickly get an idea of where the problem is. So here you can see that we had 36 failed logins to these two accounts, which I blacked out because obvious. So what had happened here was we had users who created important production scripts that ran under their own user account. And then when they left, they failed. So we had important actions for our production systems that didn't get executed because these scripts failed. So we had to quickly figure out what these scripts were. Thanks to IP address, we were able to do that fast. And get those running under a service account instead of user accounts. So, unusual locations. So this is good for companies that are very local, only have a couple offices within the area, where you really wouldn't see logins from maybe anywhere other than Cleveland. Of course, employees travel, you have people logging in when they're traveling, but in general, you probably shouldn't see a login from Nigeria. Just saying. So, this time I decided to look at our VPN logs, specifically successful connections. And then Splunk has this really cool feature called IP location, where you can pull in the geolocation of IP addresses right into the log aggregator, and so we can get all of that information about each of the IP addresses in our logs. And then I'm specifically looking for any VPN connections outside of the United States. And then because of the way the NOT operator works in Splunk, if you have a null country value, it doesn't return results properly, so I went ahead and set a default for that. And then once again threw it into a table. Oh look, my account's accessed from Nigeria. Problem. This is all fake data, by the way. I didn't actually get access from Nigeria. I probably wouldn't be allowed to give this presentation if I did. So this is good if your company's more global. So you can't really, you'll have people logging in from all over the country. So instead what we're going to look for is logins that physically wouldn't be possible. So think about, a login from the United States. Sorry. Losing my voice. So think about a login from the United States and then 5 minutes later a login from China. That physically wouldn't be possible. And nobody's going to VPN to China. It's just not going to happen. So, once again, we're going to look at our VPN logs, and we're going to group it by user. There is a much more in-depth version of this presentation that was done at the 2016 BSides Cleveland. They use a lot of, math and calculations to figure out what would be possible and what wouldn't be. So if you want to make a really accurate search, I suggest checking out their presentations, that link there at the bottom. I am sorry you are getting rained on. So just real quick, brief version of this, which is much less complex. Say if you guys want to like crowd in here, that's cool. You don't want to get rained on. So. We won't bite, I promise. Well, I won't. I can't promise for anybody else. So, but anyway, real fast, I just grouped all of these logins by user, and then I specified if there is more than one country involved in that login to go ahead and return those results. So like I said, it's a really simple version. You can find the more complex version on Iron Geek if you want to set that up. So here you can see that I was accessed from the United States and United Kingdom within about 10 hours. Possible flight time depending on your layovers, but still might raise some suspicion. So this is sort of the inverse of the previous search. Instead of one user being accessed from multiple locations, you have multiple users being accessed from the same location. So of course this could be, employees collaborating off-site. This could be a husband and wife logging in from the same location. But it's still worth checking out if you start seeing one IP address accessing 30, 50, 100 of your accounts. It's a big indicator that there's been a massive compromise. So once again, we're looking at VPN logs, and I'm going to group them all together by IP so we can figure out where they're all coming from. And then I'm going to say, only show me results where there are more than one user associated with an IP address. And then once we we can pull in all the geolocation info and put it in a table. And oh look, Iran is accessing not just one, but multiple of our accounts. That's something we probably want to do something about. So, and the last, and personally my favorite, is connections to malicious domains. So if you weren't aware, there are people that keep lists of malicious domains, whether it's phishing or malware-infected websites. And then you can download that list into a CSV file and upload it into your log aggregator and say, hey, are any of my users accessing these known malicious domains? So for this, we're going to look at our DNS logs. And then you have to make sure that the field in Splunk is the same as your column name in your CSV file, so you have to do some renaming. And then, of course, the URLs and DNS logs aren't real pretty, so we're going to do some regex to make them look the way we're used to seeing them. And then we're going to compare our DNS logs with that CSV file to see if there are any matches. And sure enough, we had a couple users visiting phishing websites, follow up with them. Yes, they submitted information. Yes, we get to go through the whole computer clean, password reset process, the whole 9 yards. So that's it for my quick searches that y'all can set up. There's a couple ways that you can take this, implement all those, and then keep going with it. A couple questions to ask yourself. What should be happening in our systems? If it's not happening, is that a problem? What shouldn't be happening in our systems? That's definitely a problem. And then check for any anomalies. Are there any severe spikes or dips in activity? Suddenly there's normally like 50 logins a day. Now there's 5,000 logins a day. Is that a problem? Maybe people are just finding out about you and that's really cool. Or maybe it's somebody attacking your website. So, and then once you build all of these really cool, fancy searches, share them with the community. So people like me who don't know where to start have something to help get their systems up and running. Like I mentioned earlier, I have the new website where I'm posting all of this. If you want to send your searches to me and I can share them, and I'm so sorry about the rain. So yeah, feel free to send those to me. We can get them all posted, build sort of a community where you can go to really help improve your log monitoring. And that is pretty much it, thank God. Any questions before you run through the rain? No? Was I that good that there's no questions? Go ahead. I have. So he asked if I had seen the white paper about spotting the adversary in Windows event logs, which I do. I think is a really great resource and a place to get you started with some of those. I think some of those will, be very useful and some of them won't, depending on your company size, but it's a very good place to get started. One of the things I want to do with my website is not just have a list of searches, but break it down like I did step by step. So if you're new to a log source, if you've never looked at Windows, you can understand what each of the things mean. Because event codes, there's a lot of event codes. Trying to find those lists can be very extensive. But yes, that's a good place to start. There are other websites like Go Splunk, or there's like the big blue book of Splunk logs that also have a lot of searches where you can get started. So yes, lots of resources. Any other questions? Go ahead. Sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Windows registry, aren't there lists of websites that are avoid these?
There may be. So the question is, in the Windows registry, are there not lists of websites to avoid? I'm not super familiar with the Windows registry. There may be. I think the websites that I mentioned are all community driven. So as soon as a new one's found, they submit it to this forum and it gets uploaded. So I'm not sure how often the Windows one might be updated, but the online websites that have these lists are updated very frequently. So, any other questions? I can't see. Okay, I think we are good. Thank you very much for coming to my presentation and of dealing with the rain. I appreciate it. So, thanks for making a newbie very happy. So, thank you.